Phase Zero bonus episode. It's Friday, and I'm BD, joined today by Jamie Drack.
Good morning.
We got Aaron Perrine.
What's going on, everybody?
And we got Jenna Anderson.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, hello, hello. This is our Spider-Man 4, Everything We Know So Far bonus episode, because there's been a lot of rumors about Spider-Man in the rumor places lately. So we're going to talk about some of those, everything that's kind of come out along the way, everything that might be happening, might not be happening. If we know anything, you're going to know it now too. And at this point, Spider-Man 4, lots of unofficial stuff. I think the only official thing we have is that Sony owes Marvel a Spider-Man appearance in a non-Spider-Man movie. That was what Chairman Tom Rothman told us at the Spider-Man No Way Home premiere, that the deal was imbalanced in that way, that the ledger had one lending of Spider-Man to Disney and Marvel Studios after No Way Home, and we don't know if a new deal has been struck since then. But there's lots of rumors, lots of speculation, lots of things to say. So before we get started, does anybody want to get out? Oh, that's the wrong character. Anything you guys want to talk about at the start before this? Hopes, dreams, prayers?
I feel like I need to reiterate what I said in our very last episode, which is that I still don't believe this movie is happening. I mean, I was a teenager when the Spider-Man 3 came out with Tobey, and I remember that there was supposed to be a Spider-Man 4 back in those days, and that never happened. So I feel like I just need to reiterate that I do not believe that this exists yet, but I am still ready to engage in this conversation.
I still mourn that Spider-Man 4 and the Anne Hathaway Black Cat that we were allegedly supposed to get, because I feel like that would have changed the course of history. I have to say before we get started, I'm glad that I've gotten people on the Big Wheel train since last Wednesday's episode. So we will probably not be talking about Big Wheel this week, but just know in the dream scenario, he would be in Spider-Man 4.
You're not alone. You're not alone. People want Big Wheel. The comment section wants Big Wheel. Jenna's Big Wheel gang is rolling, baby. So I don't think there's going to be room for Big Wheel and Spider-Man 4 if Sony gets their way, according to these rumors. So let's start with the big rumor that's been going around this week. Daniel RPK shared this. Daniel RPK is right enough that we have to talk about things when he says them. Not like all scoopers, not a perfect track record. Also, I think this is a thing where Daniel RPK might hear some things, and then those things change along the way. Like I could tell you right now, Spider-Man No Way Home was not the plan for Spider-Man 3. I had lots of insights, lots of information, stuff that we revealed exclusively on Comic Book before Phase Zero existed, I think, about Spider-Man 3. It was going to be a different story. And then COVID happened. The release dates changed. Production schedules changed. Being able to film in international locations became harder. Toby and Andrew, I guess, were sitting at home like the rest of us and said, you know what, I'd like to go to a movie set. Let's forget it. I'll do Spider-Man. He wears a mask. It's safe. So for whatever reason, the things shifted around and Spider-Man No Way Home became the story. So therefore, it would seem like a lot of the stuff reporters, myself included, about that we said about Spider-Man 3 with Tom Holland at the time ended up being fake or inaccurate. And that's just the game. Sometimes it's true when you hear it, and then things change. Like I remember we broke on the very first episode of Phase Zero that Daredevil was going to be in that Charlie Cox was going to be in Spider-Man No Way Home. And I remember I found the reason why some of the bigger outlets didn't pick it up was because they weren't sure if the scene was going to make the movie, and they didn't want to be wrong if they reported it. So I was like, well, I remember all the hate I was getting, people saying like, you better be right. Well, some people were like, wow, did you spoil that? I get it. I get that part. But then some people were like, you're going to be wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, damn, if they cut the scene, I'm never going to live this down. Fortunately, they didn't. And Matt Murdock is back in every way. But anyway, all that said, I guess that's a long-winded preface to say, take this kind of with a grain of salt. Daniel RPK is right enough that we respect the scoops that he drops, and we're talking about him now here on the show. So this is the latest one. Sony wants Spider-Man 4 to be a big multiverse crossover story with Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire together again. Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige want Spider-Man 4 to be a grounded MCU sacred timeline story with only Tom Holland Spider-Man. I have a lot of thoughts on this. I've just been talking a lot. So let me go around first before I just freaking hog the mic. Jamie, you're at the top. What are your thoughts on this? Do you have a preference on which way that goes?
Honestly, I have mixed feelings about it because I am like the biggest number one sucker for nostalgia, but also like we got this movie already. and it was a really good movie. And I'm sure if they do it right, getting these three guys back together would be great. But also, I want to see Tom on the ground. I mean, that's what the movie set up. That's what the last movie set us up for, and I would like to see it. It's really hard. Like maybe a balance. Like maybe give us a little cameo or something. I don't know. I just feel like we can only ride this train for so long. We need to start moving forward in a way that it doesn't feel like we are. And so, but again, it's like if they do come back, what am I going to be mad about it? I don't know. It's really hard. I'm definitely conflicted, but my gut tells me I want just Tom.
Yeah, Aaron, what are you thinking?
Well, I'm of a couple different minds about it as well, but I err on the side of like blow this thing out, because 3 months ago I sat here and watched the entire chat complain for 4 straight weeks about how things are not moving forward with the multiverse saga. If you do the small thing, it moves it forward not an inch, not really. It might be fun, it might be interesting. You might get Matt Murdock. I think he's going to be in the movie anyway. Him and Fisk are never going to be in the movie anyway, so it doesn't really matter whether it's a big multiversal story or not, because there's just too much money to be earned. But I do kind of like, this is why when I expressed my cynicism about the whims of the fans, you see why I might have had some kind of like nascent cynicism, because 3 months ago, this was not the answer to that question. And now, as more information is developed, it has changed. But we also know it does not seem that Marvel Studios is abandoning the multiverse saga. They're trying to do all of it at the same time. So, I mean, as annoying as it is to have, stuff that they're probably not going to use that much, like intrude on the story, you might be able to make some lemonade out of it,
I have to say, I don't necessarily think that all the stories need to be multiverse stories now. Like that, at least for me, that's not what I've been wanting. I know I want the multiverse saga as a whole to feel cohesive and progressive, like it's going anywhere. And I simultaneously want Spider-Man 4 to be just one Spider-Man. I want Tom Holland to be solo on the ground, like what Jamie said. I lean that way for sure. Again, I won't, like Jamie said, I won't be mad if they do another big event movie with all three of them. But my logic is, the Guardians of the Galaxy weren't in Avengers 2. Hulk, Thor, the Wasp weren't in Captain America Civil War. Infinity War and Endgame wouldn't have been what they were if all of the team-up event movies, if everything leading up to it was a full, complete team movie. It had to have that sort of, bringing them back together. So my thing that I want to see the multiverse saga do is put the characters together more than anything. I want to see these stories intertwine, and then that leads somewhere. I don't need to rush into Secret Wars. I just want to know that I think Secret Wars will be more interesting if we spend time with Shang-Chi meeting Hawkeye, meeting Thor, meeting, everybody else that's been introduced along the way, Miss Marvel. And then, I want to see where Monica is at. I want to see the multiverse stuff as well. I think that there's times and places for it, but the saga as a whole has not felt cohesive, and that's been my biggest complaint, and that's why I feel like it's not moving forward. The freaking hand in the ocean, man, and nobody wants to give it a high five or even acknowledge it exists. So anyway, Jenna checked out for a second. I think your internet popped you out of the conversation for a minute there. Where do you fall on this? Which one do you prefer?
I'm conflicted because I agree with Aaron. I think there is a way to just go completely bananas with 4 and have fun with it. But the thing that I am kind of going back to is, I don't know if you can have lightning in a bottle twice. I think that the 3 Spider-Men in No Way Home was such a magical experience, and they did all of the right things, even though they got there in a really kind of convoluted, crazy, ever-changing sort of way. And I'm just worried if we attempted to do that again and had all 3 of them together, it would just be kind of diminishing returns. So part of me almost doesn't want that. I still think there's a way to tell a multiversal Spider-Man story with Tom Holland that doesn't necessarily retread the same ground. But at the same time, I would also want to see the Daredevil Kingpin, very grounded movie that could be coming out.
Just make Spider-Man 4, make the Amazing Spider-Man 3, give, Tom Hardy and Andrew Garfield some time together, let the characters kind of grow, and then bring them back together and plant seeds in those too. You can throw little credit scenes or little nods, little this, little that, just to acknowledge that they are coexisting in different universes. Like the universes are coexisting and will eventually cross back over, and that makes the crossover better, in my opinion.
I have a question for you because the idea of an Amazing Spider-Man 3, I'm all on board because I am absolutely a simp for the second one. But do you think if like a trailer for Amazing Spider-Man 3 dropped and normal people who don't know things like we do sees that, aren't they going to be confused?
To be honest, they might be confused, but they'll still buy tickets.
All right. Well, okay.
yeah.
That's fair. I feel like going that route, as much as I would love it, I think would like break people's brains.
And in fairness, Spider-Man No Way Home, to give the credit to the people I just discredited by saying they'll be confused, Spider-Man No Way Home made $2 billion, right? It's like or just short.
1.87.
Yeah.
It made a lot of money. Enough money that I think anybody who's going to watch The Amazing Spider-Man 3 watched Spider-Man No Way Home. Whereas there might be people who watch Spider-Man No Way Home who won't watch The Amazing Spider-Man 3. There is nobody who's going to go watch an Andrew Garfield movie that didn't watch No Way Home. But there are people who watch No Way Home that might not go see that movie. So I do think for the most part, they'll get it, if that makes sense.
I also think it comes down to tone. And I think like an example of that is the way that DC is dealing with Batman in the coming years. Of like, we still have Matt Reeves's movies that have a very distinct kind of tone for Batman. And then they've already announced we're getting the Bat Fam and we're getting a very kind of completely different tone with the DCU Batman. So I think audiences can understand it if there's two completely different tones and two completely different vibes. But I don't know how you differentiate Andrew Garfield from Tom Holland without just the aesthetics of the Amazing movies. Like there's probably a way, but I don't know if Sony wants to go there and do something that's decidedly darker or decidedly different. So
Patrick King in the comments. Well, go ahead. I'll pull this up in a second. Go ahead, Aaron.
Oh, I was going to reference his point, so you could read it.
Oh, yeah. Patrick King. BD, I love your plan, but, quote, just spend millions of dollars on making a bunch of movies, end quote, is maybe easier said than done. Yeah, but they're making Madam Web and Craven and Morbius.
That's what I was that's my point, was I was like, I would feel differently about your plan if those other things weren't occurring. Like, if you took the money that was going towards Venom 3 and, like, at least Craven and just made Amazing Spider-Man 3, voila. Because it seems like, funny enough, Madam Web seems like the most essential of them because they are planning their own multiverse stuff themselves. And that's probably what the movie was. I know we'll get into it later. But if you were spending the money differently, sure. But I know, especially in the last week and a half, where everybody's like, oh no, too much money's being spent everywhere. Like paying Andrew Garfield all the money and then having Hardy in it seems like it would be dope, but I just don't see it as realistic, right?
Yeah.
You're reminding me that a friend asked me last night, like, oh, what are you excited about Madam Web? And I was like, just listen to Phase Zero. I can't talk about this in my real life. I can't. Like, I talk about this enough. I can't, please. I can't. Let's talk about literally anything else.
That good promotion. Good job, Jamie.
You and I are not the same because I talk about Madam Web in my like ordinary life way too much at this point. So
what am I? I think I know when I'm seeing Madam Web.
Ooh.
Actually, I don't know if they sent official stuff yet. I was just looking. And even if they did, I probably shouldn't say it.
I was about to say.
They're starting to figure out the Madam Web stuff. Somebody did pass on Phase Zero. And I was like, did she listen to us talking about it?
Oh, no.
But, you know, whatever. I don't know. I doubt that's the case. I bet it was just whatever. The interest or schedule, whatever. But Madam Web is coming.
What are we supposed to do? Like, pretend everything is, like, be positive all the time? This would be a very boring podcast if we Okay,
so before we take a break, let's talk about who's going to direct Spider-Man 4. Truthfully, I don't think it's going to be John Watts. I don't really need it to be John Watts. John Watts was going to do Fantastic Four, but he did Star Wars The Skeleton Crew instead, which actually looks pretty delightful. Jamie, you know about that. You know why? Because you were at D23.
Yeah. Jude Law came on stage, and I was like, oh, yeah, Jude Law. Oh, I'm ready. Just like that.
So personally, I have no interest in Sam Raimi directing Tom Holland's Spider-Man 4. So I'm just going to put that one out there because I feel like that's a name people are going to bring up. Does anybody want Sam Raimi?
I feel like they don't even want Sam Raimi. I feel like just hearing the rumor mill about how they have kind of two opposing versions of this movie in development, I don't think Sam Raimi wants to come into that, especially after Multiverse of Madness. Like, there's probably some new person out there who could direct a good trilogy in the same kind of level that John Watts did, but I have no idea who that person is.
I think Drew Goddard could be a good choice. Dan the man in the comment section saying Drew Goddard.
I'm never going to be mad about Sam Raimi, but I agree that I don't think he's the right choice. But I do love this Drew Goddard suggestion because I love Drew. We're going back to the Buffy days. I like that suggestion. I feel like get somebody new in there. Get some fresh blood. There are more than like 7 directors, guys.
Yeah.
I don't think, and I say this as a fan of all 3 of the MCU Spider-Man movies. I didn't feel like John Watts had essentially a stamp of his own on those movies. Maybe besides the first one, because it had a very kind of cool coming of age. I really like the duality of Peter Parker versus Spider-Man. That moment when he walks into Homecoming and he has to make the choice of like, do I want to be a superhero? Or do I want to be a teenager? And he chooses to be the superhero. Like, I thought that was probably I felt like had the most authentic sort of stamp and tone that John Watts brought to anything. But then Far From Home, I'm a fan of Far From Home. I know in the years that have passed, somehow Far From Home has become one of the movies everybody's turned on. But I'm a fan of it. I think Jake Gyllenhaal is great. Mysterio's a great villain. And then No Way Home is just it's a fan service in a fulfilling way, in my opinion. It's not a perfect movie. I think people are also. I'm also noticing comment sections are starting to get sometimes a little bit more negative on No Way Home than they ever were before, although it is still widely beloved. But I think with this rumor popping up, it has prompted people to be like, no, not again, in a sense. Whereas before they would have been like, I'll watch these guys do anything together, kind of to Aaron's point. So in terms of directors, nobody's locked in. Drew Goddard, I think, is a great choice. I do think, finding some new blood like the Russo brothers were with Winter Soldier, finding some people like that. It also needs really good writers because I don't think you have the Russo brothers and their prolific name as it stands with Marvel without Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely. So,
oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, someone in the comments saying Vincent and Moorhead, they got enough stuff to do, y'all. They can't direct all this stuff. What did I say? They're not saying this was going to happen. Where everybody's like, just let them do it. Like, they got enough stuff to do.
They would probably make a really good Spider-Man movie, though. Especially if Daredevil's coming into it. If they work on Spider-Man after Daredevil, I do think those two.
If they were to make 6 things, I'm revisiting my point from the end of last year. Because they would be up to what? That's Loki, Daredevil, Spider-Man 4, and Moon Knight. Yeah.
I mean, they're probably going to do Secret Wars. Watch.
Yeah.
I was just about to say, I didn't know if they were confirmed yet, but I was like, watch that happen. And I'll just be like, oh, here we go.
It would be interesting to see them go from only shows to the biggest movie of the saga. That's a jump right there, but we'll see. So, Spider-Man 4, no director yet. If you have a suggestion, somebody you think should direct Spider-Man 4, we kind of all came into this and we're like, well, whatever. We'll see.
I want to add, because I've been beating this drum for a while, I would like Chad Stahelski to get into the MCU because he is such a good action director. And if this was an on-the-ground movie, I think he would be an awesome choice. If it was a multiverse movie, then not necessarily. So,
y'all are crafting a movie that like 4-year-olds cannot go to. 4-year-olds cannot. You're gonna have to explain it to so many parents.
You can make a really good action movie that's not bloody. You absolutely can. You can
just look at the Spider-Man PS4 games.
Right.
Just look at the level of like violence in those games.
Just because you directed John Wick doesn't mean you can't do something like that without making it scary or whatever. You can do action. There are so many amazing action movies that aren't rated R. Look at the Mission Impossible franchise.
We're talking about a fan base that went frame by frame during a 2-minute fight in Echo and was like, it's not hardcore enough. I don't have any faith in them. I have faith in you, Jamie, not in the fan base though.
Give Josh Trank another shot.
I don't think he even wants that.
Didn't he do Chronicle though?
Yeah, but I think he's moved on.
That
No,
man's
I
been through enough.
Yeah.
He's been through
I
enough.
don't think I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know who. Man, Chad Stahelski would be quite a choice. I do think, like Ryan Reflects just said on YouTube, Chad would be really cool for Blade. But yeah, no.
I'm not saying he needs to be Spider-Man. I just want him in the MCU
Yeah.
really badly. And so I'm just putting his name out into the universe. But I think that he could do it. I think that he is capable of such things.
Sure. I
Brandon.
mean, Argyle's a perfect example of what you're saying. I know nobody besides me has seen it yet, but you look at Matthew Vaughn's track record, it's very R-rated, and then Argyle comes along, captures all that tone, but it's PG-13. So it doesn't have all the blood.
Can I throw in a weird one? Because I'm bad
Go
at
for
this
it.
game, so it took me this long to think of somebody.
Ooh.
Yeah, how you feel about Sam Hargrave?
Sam Hargrave, I'll say, okay.
Is that the
Woo!
extraction guy?
Uh-oh.
Is that the extraction guy?
Yeah, that's who it
Sam
is.
Hargrave,
Oh.
it's a lot of, I want a little bit, this sounds so rude. I want a little bit more substance and depth to the character than we've seen in the only movies that Sam Hargrave has directed. Sam Hargrave does incredible action. Those oneers in the Extraction movies are freaking phenomenal. But I don't know that those movies are written to have the deepest character moments. He does maximize what he's given in those. They're fun movies. I really enjoy them for what they are. But could he direct Spider-Man? That's a gritty turn for Spidey.
It is.
I'll take, you know me, I'll take it. Iron, I'm surprised you said Sam Hargrave because I'll listen.
He's a Marvel favorite. He's developed in-house and he loves Chris Hemsworth. Like, I don't know. He just seems like the kind of thing where it's like, we already know this guy and you've seen him do a bunch of cool action sequences. So if the script is tight and he don't have to really pull any interiority out of Tyler Rake, God bless.
Blaine Ayers asking who did Kingsman. That's Matthew Vaughn, who I just talked about. And I have to say, I am not for Matthew Vaughn directing a Spider-Man movie. I love Matthew Vaughn's movies, but my goodness, are they over the top and one of a kind in a way that I don't think a Spider-Man movie would fit well with.
Yeah.
I mean, he crushed X-Men, so it's
Yeah.
like,
That is true.
I mean, you can't discount that he made one of the best X-Men movies. So,
Wait,
just
which one
throwing
did he
that
make?
out there.
First class.
First Class.
Looking something up here.
Oh boy. Can I also just say, like, to Jamie's point of like naming the same like 6 or 7 people, we've only suggested white men in this conversation, I feel like, which is kind of reflective of just, I don't know. There's also probably a really, really awesome female director or director who is not a white man who could probably absolutely crush a Peter Parker story, and we might just not even know it yet.
Yeah,
feel like
Fresh
anybody
Blood,
who's-
saying it again.
Yeah.
I feel like anybody who's directed an episode of The Mandalorian could probably do a good Spider-Man movie. Like or most of them.
Rick!
I
Let's
was
get
gonna
Rick
say,
in there.
Rick
Bryce
or Bryce
Dallas
Dallas Howard. Yeah.
Yeah. That's where my mind went. I was like, okay, that has the Mandalorian has a pretty diverse palette of directors for the resume. If you look at everybody who's directed those episodes, I was like, who's directing? So yeah, that'd be interesting. It's a good point. All right. We're going to take a quick 1-minute break. If you have somebody you think should direct Spider-Man 4, drop it in the comments, send it our way on social media. If you're listening later in the car or at work, you're welcome for the distraction. We'll see you in a moment because we're going to talk about other Sony movies and how they might impact the story of Spider-Man 4 and when we might see this movie if, to Jamie's disbelief, it does exist. See you in a moment. welcome back to Phase Zero's Spider-Man, everything we know so far. So during the break, I was checking some tweets and checking some messages. I got a message from somebody who's watching live, and they asked, you think it's because Marvel needs a good payday that they would want to do all 3 Spider-Mans in one movie? Sony is the one who wants it, and it would none of that, or at least a lot of that, if not none of that box office would go to Marvel Studios and Disney, which might be why they're like, you know what? Let's just do one. But no, I'm not sure. Obviously, the motivation is the box office dollars for Sony. That's the obvious hit there, and I think Marvel is recognizing that a longer form story, a longer booking, longer term storytelling, developing Spider-Man in the fallout of No Way Home is the better starting point. But speaking of Sony, let's talk about their other movies and how they might factor in. Rumors: Tom Holland was supposed to appear in Madam Web. There are also reports that it was supposed to be Andrew Garfield. Then it switched to Tom, and now it's no one. It's John Cena. So
this is so funny to me.
Mhm.
I mean, the simplest thing. Oh, our movie takes place in 2003. Let's have Tom Holland in there. He was a child. Like he was he even born? Yeah, no, he was. But like, what? And then, okay, let's do this. To not even understand the timeline of your movie makes me really worried that you don't know what you're doing at all. Like, are you kidding me? That's the simplest thing. And I know that Homecoming botched some timelines too, but I'm sorry, but putting a little title on your screen is different than, let's put Tom Holland in this movie. That'll make sense.
I do have to say, I think any Spider-Man we may or may not get in Madam Web would just be in a portal, and that would be like across space and time and wouldn't have to like adhere to any sort of timeline. We joked about this in the comic book Slack the other day, and we were joking of like Leonardo DiCaprio as Spider-Man, like finally fulfill the prophecy that we never got of like, just do that. But I don't know at this point. We'll obviously talk about it in Madam Web in a couple of weeks, but it is just kind of crazy how all of that rumor mill has progressed.
directed by James Cameron.
Yeah.
Oh Lord.
There's not enough water in the Spider-Man universe.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the whole thing takes place in the Hudson.
Yeah.
Gross.
All the Kingpin's bodies are in the anyway. Aaron, did you have any thoughts on the Madam Web? Go ahead, because
you're directing a comic book movie, and like Jenna said, you could just have it be a portal. I don't understand why you felt the need to tie it to this specific time period, if that was the case. And also, as we talked about in this week's Phase Zero, timing it to be this Y2K influence thing and then abandoning all of it as that's the core youth aesthetic in the United States and Western countries is hysterical. It does not make sense. Like shooting all that stuff, having the poor guy who had to go up there in New York or whatever and put that giant Beyonce Crazy in Love thing on the wall, Dancing in Love on the wall, and then rip it down. Like, it's just silly.
There has already been so much discourse about the PSP that's in the trailer because people were like, that technically didn't come out around the time that this was set. And it's like, none of this matters. I don't know what to tell you.
No. Oh.
It doesn't.
So,
they don't make the Sony Marvel movies just don't make sense. It's that easy. And it just goes, I'll never forgive the Morbius credit scene for the fact that they paid somebody $20 and a handshake to put it together, but also the complete lack of logic in the storytelling of it. I mean, we've talked about this, but it does not make any sense that Michael Keaton's Vulture would go from the MCU to wherever Morbius is. It just doesn't make any sense. And it's not intriguing, as Morbius said. It is stupid. And I don't know. To me, it didn't happen. It's not canon. Vulture is still in the MCU waiting for Spider-Man 4 to happen so he can bring his prison buddy. Who was with him? Was it Chameleon?
Yeah.
Scorpion? Who was?
Or Scorpion.
It was Scorpion, right? In the prison. So they can start their own Sinister Six in the MCU.
You're going to be on your deathbed, like surrounded by grandchildren, still complaining about the Morbius post.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to be a grumpy old man being like, well, I used to be happy, but then I saw the Morbius credit scene, and I was never the same. That was the stupidest shit I ever saw, Timmy.
For those listening, Aaron is muted and is hysterically laughing. There we go.
What? You're in Elvis for some reason on your deathbed. I don't know.
Did I just become Austin Butler?
Or Colonel Tom Parker. You sounded like a mix of the two of them.
Oh God.
Anyway, let's get to the other notes because you have more notes. The symbiote is still in the MCU, which is a whole thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, why? I mean, cool, fantastic. I hope it matters. This is another one of those things that to me is okay. Throw on the long list of unanswered credit scenes, and Venom coming to the MCU only to be sent back to the MCU to leave a little crumb behind just feels like something that we might never see pay off. I really want to see that pay off. The idea, and let's just combine this with the next talking point that Kingpin is supposedly, Daniel RPK rumor, a part of Spider-Man 4, the version that Marvel Studios wants to make. The idea of Kingpin being like the main villain and Venom being like a crazy adversary along the way, almost like Black Manta in the first Aquaman movie. Yo, I could not be more on board with that. I'm here for it. That is world building. That is different levels. That is tiers to the villainy. I'm here for, I want it. Give me it. Do it. It's right there. We gave you this for free.
I mean,
go ahead, Jamie.
I was gonna say Vincent just told Adam that he still wants to quote kick Spidey's ass. So
See, my assumption with the black suit, and like we'll get to the Secret Wars of it all, but my assumption was that they left the little Venom goop in the MCU so that it would be easier to get the black suit and we wouldn't have to justify and explain why the black suit exists in the MCU. That they could just use that shorthand because the Venom movies made money and people know of the Venom movies. So it's like, let's just have the shorthand. Let's just have a thing that can give him the black suit so that years from now in Secret Wars, we can get to that point.
I'd rather see Venom. I mean, the black suit will be cool, but I want to see Tom Holland come across a Venom. That'd be dope. And Kingpin. Oh yeah, Aaron, what's up?
This is the crux. This is how you get both. This is how we win, which is have him hire 5 street level villains for them all to be fighting, and then when they inevitably get their crap pushed in by Daredevil, Echo, Spider-Man, and Hawkeye. You idiots, I couldn't do it. So I hired a guy and he has this stupid symbiote and that's the final boss of this movie while I'm in the background cackling and insulting you because I'm Vincent D'Onofrio. That is how we win. That is how it happens. They probably won't though, because like Brandon says, it makes too much sense. It's just entirely too much sense to be had.
It's been like 880 days since we saw or heard of Shang-Chi in the MCU. Things really, these inter-studio deals are getting even. Like that's all owned by Marvel. This is you got to collaborate with Sony, and they're on their high horse right now after No Way Home. And you know what? I get it. With the exception of all the movies they made, they're doing great with Spider-Man. So, and the MCU.
I have a question. Do you think that this year, Madam Web, Kraven, and Venom 3 together combined will make more money than Spider-Man No Way Home combined?
No.
Not a chance.
Like, if you add all 3 box offices together, they're not going to touch Spider-Man.
I will say Madam Web is now releasing in China, which could help it a lot because like Venom made a ton of money in China. The first Venom did. Part of that was the marketing campaign that made him into like a little kawaii boyfriend. So I would love to see them market Madam Web in a crazy way too. But I feel like it'll make more money than people are expecting. But I think combined, the 3 of them are not going to touch the 1.8 billion. No way.
Combine the 3 of them against what movie?
No Way Home.
Oh, yeah, no way.
I think that's funny. I think that's really funny. Like, the goal for every movie should not be to make $1 billion at all. I do not think that. I don't think that's not art at all. But I do think it's funny that they're just choosing these movies why? Like, especially with the track record that they have. It's wild to me.
Yeah. No, those movies ain't touching it. Like, I mean, Madam Web is projected to open for $25 million on Valentine's Day weekend. It might not even win the box office. Venom.
Bob Marley. It's opening the same day, same weekend.
Yeah.
That would be, you would hear it from me on here. And I'm a Madam Web defender, but you would hear it from me on here. I'd be like, wow.
I'll tell you this, I want Madam Web.
Trailers I'm sick of seeing.
Yeah.
I want Madam Web to do well. I do. It'll be better for Phase Zero. It'll be better for comicbook.com if Madam Web does well. I hope Madam Web is good, A, because I'm going to watch it. B, it's more fun to talk about it when these things are good. C, it'll drive people to Phase Zero who may have never otherwise listened because we'll be out here having a good time talking about it, all that stuff. But Bob Marley's a Paramount movie.
It is.
Hey, let's go. That's the mothership.
Let's go.
That's right. Go, Bob. Rake in the money. Keep all our jobs. But no, I root for every movie. It's no secret.
Yeah.
People get mad at me because I want to see movies do well and I want to enjoy them. So I'm not ashamed of that.
Why would anyone want movies to do poorly? It first of all, it all trickles down to everything. I mean, a thriving movie theater is a good sign of a thriving economy, people.
It's the George Lucas anecdote of how he gives every movie a standing ovation, and people are like, "Why are you do that?" And he's like, "Because it's so amazing to even get a movie made and have like an end product that is an actual watchable movie." So it's like, yeah, it's the same sentiment.
Another rumor: Vulture and Scorpion. I wrote Chameleon. I meant to say Scorpion are supposed to be villains in Spider-Man 4. We kind of just touched on that. I personally think Vulture was a great villain. I love Michael Keaton. I think I know where Jamie stands on this. Yeah, there he is.
I always have him ready. Listen, I want Keats and everything, but also I've been waiting so long for Michael Mando to come back. Yeah. I want more Mando. I would love that so much if they would both be in this film. And Keats deserves better. He keeps getting the short end of the stick, getting thrown in Morbius and not even and no one understanding it. And people didn't like The Flash, and it's just he deserves better.
I mean, I really think Kingpin can be such a good overarching adversary for Spider-Man with him sort of manipulating and or hiring or doing anything to get these villains out of jail, working for him, working against Spider-Man, anything like that. So I know I saw some people saying Tom Holland needs to get his own Spider-Man movie. Sure, absolutely. Tom Holland is great Spider-Man, but you throw Daredevil in there, I'm not going to be mad. Spider-Man's still the main character. Anyway. And one last thing about this, Beyond the Spider-Verse, could it possibly do anything to set up Spider-Man 4? I think if it's a multiverse story, sure. We saw the sort of tree of multiverse timelines in across the Spider-Verse was consistent with that of some of the designs we saw in Loki. So I don't know. I think they should, if they were wise, and they very well may be, and you want to set something up out of Beyond the Spider-Verse, you might set up Andrew Garfield and Tobey. I don't know how the rules work on Tom Holland with his Spider-Man. I know they can't make an outright MCU movie without Marvel Studios, but you can do and include what Sony can do whatever the hell they want with Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans. They can do that. And I think that's the smart play.
I would love nothing more than them to crib as much from those movies as possible in their approach if we're just going to abandon what they were going to do, because they're just so universally beloved that why not just use the Xerox machine and copy the kid who knows everything's homework? Ignore the rest of the stuff that they do. Just take the answers you need. That's all. I think that there's a method, and this is just Aaron's harebrained stuff, but that Tom was supposed to kill Goblin at the end of No Way Home. That's a canon event that threatens his world, and now you have to have his two mentors go back to help him, and there's your universe thing. Also, by the way, him killing Goblin allows Kingpin blah 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 collider multiverse. Hey, you know what, this Sinister Six is a little light on people. Here's Donald Glover and his nephew, and there you go. Now you got a nice stew going. There's a nice stew. There's a little bit here for Kevin Feige to be happy with. You get the Andrew Garfield and all them back. You get all the stuff at the same time. But like I said, that's a very expensive movie. You can't be making Rhino movies if you're going to make that movie. You cannot be making Hypno Hustle movies.
We need to know why they call him the Rhino.
Yeah, we're never going to know, Jenna, if we get that movie. We're never going to know why they call him.
Never going to know.
So,
Oh.
Ned's still supposed to be a Hobgoblin at some point. We're never gonna get that.
Magic
They just
now.
got to buy away for that, huh?
He's magic now.
He is magic now.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I-
All right, when is Spider-Man 4 going to hit theaters? The Aaron's a prophet, so I think that you just gave that all away for free, which is insanity.
Yeah, I mean,
But when do we're running a little long here. When do we think Spider-Man 4 is going to hit theaters?
I did the math on this. I found a friend of the show, Joanna Robinson, talked to NPR about the Spider-Man contract in 2022, and she said that Sony needs to start production on a new movie within 3 years and 5 months of the last movie getting released, and it needs to be released within 5 years and 5 months. So I did the math. I'm bad at math, but it supposedly would need to start production by May 17th, 2025, and then be released by May 17th, 2027. The one thing that I think about, and I was going to say this at the start of the show, I think the reason why Feige wants a smaller scale movie and Sony wants a bigger multiverse movie is because if Secret Wars eventually gets delayed, it's harder to then make a Spider-Man multiverse movie that could potentially tie into Secret Wars if it happens to come out before. Because either way, it would need to come out in May 2027. But if Secret Wars, which is currently May 7th, gets delayed in any capacity, then you're kind of putting the cart before the horse. And this is another No Way Home Multiverse of Madness situation. So I would not put it past them for being like, let's just do a smaller scale movie so that when everything shuffles around, it can go anywhere.
That's really interesting. So the maximum amount of time we could wait for a Spider-Man movie is less than 5.5 years.
Yeah.
That's not that long.
It feels so long, but yeah.
It's really interesting. The multiverse of it all, given Secret Wars, which is going to get pushed again probably, and might even be a part 1 of 2. So it could. I don't know. It's hard to imagine them making a solo Spider-Man movie and a multiverse crossover movie before the end of Secret Wars, but it's possible, and I hope it's what happens. Yeah,
Snyder.
Everyone took a moment to really see
however you feel about him, he said that was one of the first 2 priorities for them this year. It was not Secret War. It wasn't recasting Kang the Conqueror. It was figure out who the heck is doing Spider-Man 4, announcing that, and figuring out how to get Fantastic Four out the door. So if those are the priorities, I don't think we're going to wait till next year for production. I think you're going to get an announcement at Comic-Con and we're going to be off to the races. The 2025 seems very likely to me. Like everybody involved is going to be like, let's get the lead out and let's go. Like, I don't know why, but you are. Also, Brandon, so if right now, what is Secret War supposed to be 26?
27.
Oh, it's 27. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that does make sense then. You might have chance. You might have time, barely, if nothing else goes wrong. Everybody cross your fingers. It's not like this is unstable or anything.
Yeah. I think 2025 is pretty reasonable. Maybe early 26, but like Christmas 25 is certainly attainable for a solo Spider-Man film. But the problem is, if you're going to have Kingpin as the villain, he's going to be filming Daredevil Born Again all year, you know? So that's I think it's going to come down to schedules and whatnot. But yeah, I see 25, 26. I do think there's a good chance we see Spider-Man before Kang Dynasty or whatever Avengers 5 ends up being. But then again, I could also see it being one of those movies that comes in between those 2 Avengers films. So, I mean, goes without saying, I think we all know and agree we're going to see a Spider-Man movie before Secret Wars. And
do we all know? let's
I mean, just purely because, like, by the argument of like, if Secret Wars currently is supposed to be early May of 2027, and they need to release Spider-Man 4 by mid-May 2027. If Secret Wars gets delayed one more time, then yes, we are seeing it before.
Or never.
Sony just said we don't want the rights. Take them
back. They just don't want the money? Come on.
I'm talking about Tom and a lot of other factors. I'm just saying Spider-Man 4 has not happened before. And I just want to remind everybody of that one more time.
I'm interviewing Zendaya next week. I don't know how to ask the question in a way that actually gets any sort of answer that like they're comfortable giving, but I have to try.
Yeah.
I would not have my job if I don't stay. So what about Spider-Man 4 at the Dune Junket? I work at comicbook.com. I'm sorry, film Twitter. Like, bro. All right, we're going to take a quick 1-minute break. We come back. Jenna's got an interesting take on the multiverse and what could possibly make these stories a little bit better than what we've seen so far. See you in a moment. Welcome back to Facce Zero. Jenna, tell them about the multiverse.
Yeah, so I wrote a piece on comicbook.com earlier this week. I highly recommend going and reading it. Thank you to everyone who already has. I've had this brewing in my brain since The Flash came out last year, and I finally, amid all of the Deadpool 3 speculation and all of these Spider-Man rumors, I was like, I'm going to make this real. And it's basically, the multiverse needs to be about more than just nostalgia at the end of the day. I'm not saying you can't do nostalgia. I get into the piece of like the very good examples of doing that, which are No Way Home. They are the CW's Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. Like there are ways to cash in on untapped potential and missed potential of stories that we didn't get to see on screen. But then when you look at stuff like The Flash and you look at Multiverse of Madness, the multiverse stuff that we saw, the big cameos that we saw end up being kind of superficial at the end of the day. And so I think with Spider-Man 4, that is a conversation that is still going to keep happening, because if we get Tobey and Andrew back, is it going to be as meaningful as it was in No Way Home, or is it just going to be more superficial because we already did it so well the first time and there's nothing new to go off of?
CW is a perfect place to look at, I think. Like you said, I know you're all in on the CW and you know way more about it than I ever will, because I kind of fell off those shows, but I did tune in for the crossover events, the multiverse stuff, and it did such a good job. I mean, Superman and Lois spawned out of that. You know what I mean? Like, I think that I just think we need to care about other universes in ways that we don't. Now, we've been kind of saying that. I know I've been beating that drum, but the nostalgia thing seems to have kind of run its course in a lot of ways. Not just because the Marvel Cinematic Universe did nostalgia with Tobey and Andrew, and they seem to be doing it a bit with Deadpool 3, but because everything became nostalgia. DC did Michael Keaton's Batman and the Flash. Top Gun made another movie. Like, whether it was multiverse or not, movies got sequels or multiverse continuations and all kinds of stuff. And it just became it seems like so much of media became dependent on both the multiverse and nostalgia all at once for some reason.
It really is across the board. I mean, look at all the TV shows. I mean, the fact that I'm talking about new episodes of Frasier is ridiculous. I mean, like, as fun as I'm having with that, why does it exist? That man played that character for 20 years already. And as I've said many times, as though I am a huge sucker for nostalgia, I think that we are finally crawling out of that hole. I think people are over it. You guys all know that Buffy is my favorite show, and I saw some tweets yesterday because Wolfpack was canceled. Like, great Buffy revival, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't want that. That is my favorite thing in the whole world. There's nothing I love more than Buffy, and I do not want a revival of that. I just don't. I want us to just move on and create new things. And that's why this year's, I think, Best Picture lineup is so good. There's so much original good stuff in there, and I want to keep moving forward in that way of creating art.
Mm-hmm. I can't wait to see what Aaron has to say about this.
I think it's funny that we're doing this while everybody on Twitter is celebrating freaking Daredevil coming back. What are we talking about? It's so selective.
Different.
It is different. It was canceled after 3 seasons and not that long ago. It's not like it was a 20-year-old show.
Yeah, Daredevil hasn't reached nostalgia point yet.
I will say,
we inhabit different parts of the internet. Go ahead.
It goes back to what I was saying about like untapped potential, like especially for the Save Daredevil crowd, there is a lot of untapped potential in stories that they didn't get to see that they feel like they still want to see. And so I think that, like, I totally get your point, and I do agree with it to a degree, but I think like that is a separate conversation in and of itself.
It's different.
I think that everybody plays favorites of what they actually like, and that's nostalgia, and the stuff that they like is like different. I think that's across the board with all this.
I'm not even a Daredevil fan, and I don't agree that that's the same because they cut it short. It was cut down. 3 seasons is not a lot of
seasons. It's a long time for a TV show.
Too. Like Michael Keaton was Batman 3 decades ago. You know what I mean? Tobey Maguire was Spider-Man 2 decades ago. Daredevil ended what, 6 years ago? 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, I mean, it's certainly, I just don't think Daredevil crossed into nostalgia territory yet because people were still holding on that they would continue it. And so his gap ultimately ended up being like 3 or 4 years between Daredevil season 3 ending and coming back in Spider-Man was his first MCU appearance, right? And Kingpin was already back in Hawkeye by that point. So it was like 3, maybe 4 years that they went away, were unsure. Now that said, I'll give it to you. If they said, listen, we have to go back after all. Lost season 7 is coming.
Yup.
I'm canceling everything. That's it. I'm there. But so yes, there are some things that on individual basis we will, all have our thing. But I just think there's no arguing that against the point that we all acknowledge this, I think, that everything became nostalgia and multiverse. Like Invincible is a multiverse now. All these, like everything somehow became a multiverse. Rick and Morty was doing it forever, and now they're just like everything is multiverse. But to Jamie's point, like look at the biggest movies of the year. Oppenheimer and Barbie was the biggest day at the theaters I can remember since Spider-Man No Way Home. And those are two. I mean, I know Barbie is an adapted screenplay because it's based on an existing brand, but they're original stories. They're not sequels. They're not reboots. They're new movies that we have not experienced in a theater in any way before. And then you have Mario as well, which is based on a video game, but it's a new thing. That was the other biggest movie of the year. So, and my favorite movie of the year is The Creator, which is in no way based on nostalgia or anything like that. So, but I also, simultaneously, I love Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So franchises are still doing well. Across the Spider-Verse, brilliant movie. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think Daredevil falls into that yet, though. I don't think Daredevil is.
I know I'm not going with any fans on this panel with that. I know that. I'm not stupid, but I think it's really funny because it can both be nostalgia, entertainment, because all of the executives at the top. This is why I like Jenna's analysis. Why I said we should include it, because it is a conscious decision by decision makers to lean into nostalgia because they are risk averse. That is at the core of it.
Sure.
The writers are rebelling against it in the actual stories by doing, Jesus Christ, am I just going to be writing Frasier till I'm 50? You know what I mean? And far be it for me to begrudge you, but that's what happened, I guess, with a lot of the writing teams, the creative teams. They're like, wow, the only way I can get these things made is through tapping into an already existing IP. That's why Greta's thing's so good. I mean, the funny thing is that God bless, she was allowed to do it for like 5 years. That's probably why it came out so well, right? Probably. I don't know. Also, it helps to have like the hottest cast that ever was on like any sort of film, period. It's just interesting to me that I'm just like, it's going to be selective. I just think going forward, there's no way to call it. I think with a lot of the decentralization of entertainment as we know it, it's just going to be what people like to beat up on versus what people don't.
Just wait. Phase 0, season 18 in 2038. We're going to be sitting here going, we need Aaron Taylor Johnson and Dakota Johnson back. We need more Wow. Craven. Bring back Jared Leto.
When they're going to adapt Spider-Man Rain?
Oppenheimer returns.
Oppenheimer returns.
Oppenheimer 2 is going to be crazy.
I mean, there was the joke on film Twitter for a solid 6 months about Babylon 2, and I ate it up every single time because it was a very funny. I will say, piggybacking off of what Aaron said, and like I make this point in my article, I feel like the nostalgia, and especially multiversal nostalgia, needs to have a point at the end of the day. Like I get into this in the piece, and it's one of my favorite anecdotes, is like the multiverse in DC started because they wanted to bring back the Golden Age Flash. That's and they wanted to find a way to do it that made sense and didn't counteract that Barry Allen was his own thing. And so that had a purpose. The JSA being reintroduced had a purpose. And I think when you get to something like Secret Wars, we need to have that same purpose as well, and not just, well, we need to get every living Marvel actor on screen while we still can. Like, there needs to be a narrative purpose beyond that.
His comment, Oppie through the multiverse.
That'd be fun.
Oppie through the multiverse. That
oh my gosh.
Some indie director is going to do that 20 years from now as a nostalgia cycle thing and be like, remember when we all thought this was going to be the future of everything?
Yeah.
It's going to be a one camera thing where it's just fractally little things, little windows of different Cillian Murphys generated by AI. It's going to be terrible.
And then he meets Sydney Sweeney from Euphoria because everyone's
exactly,
Robert Downey Jr. meme with Oppenheimer.
Wow. And on that note, also I will own it that yes, in the comment section, everybody listening in podcast form is probably screaming at the car in front of them because I said Mario and Barbie. I use them as part of an example of original stories not having nostalgia. Yes, obviously those two do have a nostalgic tie to them in a sense. They've been around forever. So yes, I get that point too. So
but not a nostalgic cast. I feel like that's
right. In
like
in
terms
of the movies,
yes,
yeah. So all right, all this to say, Spider-Man 4. It might be a movie. It might be a multiverse. It might have a director. It might happen. So, anything else you want to talk about, let us know. We'll be back on Wednesday at noon Eastern time for another live show. I will be missing that one again. I will hopefully be back on Friday. I'm like taking a red eye home on Thursday night. So if I'm alive, I will do Friday's show and be there for it. I don't like missing Phase Zero. But y'all will be in good hands on Wednesday. So enjoy that. Jenna's going to lead the charge there. Aaron, you got any last words for today's Spider-Man, everything we know so far? Bonus episode.
It's at Some Lake Corner on Twitter. I wish we could get through one of these episodes without something happening midway through. Once again, we had something happen midway through, and we don't talk about the Fantastic Four on this podcast. We're not doing it.
Never heard of it. Doing it. Don't know what it is. There is no such thing as a Fantastic Four update. It's not real. They don't exist. If you don't look at it, it can't hurt you.
Nope.
I like Peter to go make a supercut of every time Brandon talks about being misled by Morbius and put it in black and white with a superimposed snow globe over it. Thank you. That's what I'd like.
I'd watch it. I'd watch that. Jenna.
That would be like an hour-long video.
It really would.
It's at Hey It's Jenna Lynn on social media. As always, go read some comics and go watch the Monkey Man trailer because that was incredible. Highly recommend. I am very much looking forward to that movie that I did not even know existed until this morning.
Great call. Jamie.
Oh gosh, I just want to say that I really enjoy these episodes, these niche one topic episodes, because it gives us room to have a little fun. And I had a lot of fun today. So thank you for everyone who listened and had fun with us and who sided with Aaron, even though none of us did in the show. A lot of people in the chat did. And I want to acknowledge that.
During this episode, I was distracted by the Dune popcorn bucket.
And on that note.
So that's our show. Thank you, everybody, for hanging with us on this Phase Zero bonus episode, allowing us to impart our wisdom, if that's what you want to call it, about Spider-Man 4 upon thee. Hit us up on social media. Hit me up at Brandon Davis PD. Subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/c/Phase Zero. Leave us a 5-star review. Play our show for your mom. Play it for your dog. Play it in traffic. Play it in the car. Play it at the gym. We don't care. We love you for it. Thank you so much for hanging with us. Have a fantastic weekend. We'll see you on Wednesday. See you there.